When we look at Jacques-Louis David's masterpiece, The Death of Socrates, we see a powerful scene, the great philosopher Socrates calmly accepting his fate, surrounded by his distraught followers as he prepares to drink the poisonous hemlock. At first glance, it appears to be a noble depiction of a man standing by his principles to the very end. But this painting conceals deeper, more insidious dangers that were present in ancient Athens and continue to threaten societies today. Let's take a closer look at this remarkable work of art and uncover the greater perils that lie beneath its serene surface. Jacques-Louis David completed The Death of Socrates in 1787, just 2 years before the French Revolution began. The painting depicts the final moments of the philosopher Socrates, who was sentenced to death by the Athenian government in 399 BCE. In the center of the canvas, we see Socrates sitting upright on his prison bed, one hand reaching for the cup of poisonous hemlock, the other pointing upward in a philosophical gesture. Around him, his followers react with anguish and despair, yet Socrates himself remains calm, continuing to teach even in his final moments. It's a powerful image of courage and conviction in the face of death. But as we dig deeper, we'll see that this painting reveals far more dangerous forces at work. On the surface, this painting glorifies Socrates as a martyr for truth and wisdom. But it also hints at the very real dangers that come with questioning established beliefs and power structures. Socrates was put to death for corrupting the youth and impiety. In other words, for encouraging people to think critically about their society and its gods. His method of relentless questioning threatened to undermine the foundations of Athenian culture and politics. This reveals the first hidden danger in the painting, the threat that truly open and honest philosophical inquiry poses to those in power. By depicting Socrates' death, David reminds us that pursuing truth and wisdom can come at a deadly cost when it challenges the status quo. Even today, we see philosophers, journalists, and freethinkers persecuted in many parts of the world for daring to question authority. This painting serves as a warning that the search for truth is not always safe or welcome by society. Ironically, Socrates was put to death by the very democracy he had fought to defend as a soldier. This points to another danger lurking in the painting, the potential for democratic systems to turn against those who criticize them. Athens prided itself on being an open society where free speech flourished. Yet when Socrates' questioning became too uncomfortable, that same society used democratic processes to silence him permanently. This reminds us that even democracies can fall prey to mob mentality and the tyranny of the majority. When popular opinion turns against dissenters or minority groups, democratic systems can be used to oppress rather than liberate. David's painting thus contains a subtle critique of unbridled democracy. It suggests that without proper safeguards for individual rights and freedoms, democratic rule can become just as dangerous as autocracy. Another danger hinted at in the painting is the danger of persuasive rhetoric divorced from truth. Socrates was brought down in part by the speeches of his accusers, who played on the fears and prejudices of the Athenian public. Though innocent of the charges against him, Socrates fell victim to a campaign of misinformation that painted him as a threat to Athenian values and youth. This reminds us how powerful rhetoric can be in shaping public opinion, even when it's not grounded in facts. In our modern era of fake news and viral misinformation, this aspect of the painting is more relevant than ever. It warns us to be wary of charismatic speakers and sensational claims, and to always think critically about the information we encounter. At its core, The Death of Socrates depicts a clash between individual moral conscience and the authority of the state. Socrates chooses to accept his unjust punishment rather than flee, believing it's better to suffer wrong than to do wrong. This highlights a fundamental tension in any society. What happens when an individual's sense of right and wrong conflicts with the laws and norms of their culture? How far should one go in defying unjust laws or resisting authoritarian regimes? These questions have no easy answers, but the painting forces us to grapple with them. It reminds us that blind obedience to authority can lead to grave injustices, while also hinting at the personal cost of standing up against a powerful system. Look closely at the followers surrounding Socrates. Most are overcome with grief, unable to challenge or prevent what's happening. Only Socrates' oldest friend Crito seems to be urging him to escape. This points to another subtle danger, the paralyzing effect of groupthink and social conformity. Even those who knew Socrates was innocent were largely unable to effectively oppose his execution, swept along by the tide of public opinion. The painting thus warns us about the perils of failing to think and act independently. It suggests that societies are at risk when citizens are unwilling or unable to stand up against popular but unjust decisions. For all his logical arguments and ethical reasoning, Socrates was ultimately unable to overcome the fears and prejudices of Athenian society. This hints at a sobering reality, that reason and truth don't always triumph over emotion and superstition. The painting reminds us that even in societies that value knowledge and debate, irrational fears can override logical thinking. Whether it's fear of cultural change, economic insecurity, or external threats, such anxieties can lead people to abandon reason and lash out at perceived enemies. This is a danger that persists today, as we see rational discourse frequently drowned out by fear-mongering and scapegoating in public debates. One of the key charges against Socrates was that he corrupted the youth of Athens with his teachings. While this was a false accusation, the painting does hint at the very real influence that charismatic thinkers can have on young minds. This points to the power of education and mentorship to shape future generations, for better or worse. While Socrates used his influence to encourage critical thinking, others throughout history have manipulated the young to serve darker agendas. The painting thus reminds us to be vigilant about who we allow to shape the minds of youth, while also warning against the danger of stifling new ideas out of fear of change. The cup of hemlock that Socrates is about to drink represents more than just the method of his execution. It also symbolizes the toxic nature of the false accusations that led to his death. This points to the very real danger that slander, rumor, and character assassination pose to individuals and society. False accusations can poison public discourse, destroy reputations, and even end lives. In our age of online mob justice and cancel culture, this aspect of the painting is particularly relevant. It warns us to be cautious about jumping to conclusions or participating in public shaming before we have all the facts. For all its democratic ideals and sophisticated legal system, Athens still managed to execute one of its greatest citizens on trumped-up charges. This reveals the fragility of justice systems, even in societies that pride themselves on fairness and rule of law. The painting thus contains a warning about placing too much faith in institutions to always deliver justice. It reminds us that legal systems can be manipulated, that trials can be unfair, and that innocent people can be punished if we're not vigilant. This message resonates today as we continue to grapple with issues of systemic bias and wrongful convictions in modern justice systems. Socrates was, in many ways, a victim of the moral relativism he fought against philosophically. His accusers argued that truth and morality were whatever the majority decided, a view Socrates vehemently opposed. The painting thus contains a subtle critique of relativistic thinking that denies absolute moral truths. It suggests that without some shared ethical foundation, societies can justify even the gravest injustices. This remains a pressing issue today as we navigate complex ethical questions in a diverse, globalized world. The painting challenges us to find a balance between respecting different viewpoints and upholding universal human rights. While Socrates' death was a tragedy, the painting also hints at the power of martyrdom to amplify a message. By calmly accepting his fate, Socrates ensured that his ideas would live on and spread far beyond Athens. This points to a complex historical pattern where the silencing of dissenting voices often backfires, turning the silenced into powerful symbols. From religious martyrs to political prisoners, we've seen how attempts to quash ideologies can instead energize and spread them. The painting thus contains a warning to those in power that using force to silence opposition can often make that opposition stronger in the long run. Finally, it's worth considering the painting itself as a complex interplay of concealment and revelation. While it exposes many of the dangers we've discussed, it also subtly shapes our perception of the event to serve the artist's purposes. David created this work on the eve of the French Revolution, using the story of Socrates to comment on the political tensions of his own time. The dignified, neoclassical style serves to elevate the philosophical ideals at play, while downplaying the messy realities of politics and persecution. This reminds us to always look beyond the surface of art and media, considering the agendas and cultural contexts that shape how events are presented to us. It's a final warning about the power of images and narratives to influence our understanding of both past and present. If you enjoyed uncovering the secrets of art history, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.